What's the biggest WTF thing a partner did right before you finally left for good? Story 1. We were 3 months from the wedding when I noticed the numbers. I'm not a math person, but I am a why is this 37.12 instead of 35 hour person. Our shared credit card had all these weird little differences next to my grocery runs and utility payments. I assumed it was taxes or fees until I saw one that said, round-up transfer, savings. I asked my fiancé what that meant. He shrugged, kissed my forehead, said, "Babe, it's just the bank app. It rounds up purchases into savings. Free money. Don't stress," except the savings account it was going into wasn't one I recognized. That night, he fell asleep on the couch with his phone on his chest. I opened the banking app, yes, I know, but whatever, and found an entirely separate rainy day account with only his name on it. Every roundup from our joint card was going into it. Over a year, it was thousands. There were also withdrawals. Airbnb, Delta Airlines, restaurant charges in another city on weekends he was supposedly helping his mom. My stomach dropped. I did the stupid thing and Googled one of the restaurants plus location plus Instagram. First public post. Some girl tagging the restaurant with a selfie. He's in the background, clear as day, holding her hand across the table. Date stamp matched one of the charges. I didn't confront him right away. I printed everything. The screen caps, the bank statements, the Instagram photo. I put them in a neat little pile on the kitchen table like a cursed portfolio. When he came home from work, I asked him to explain the account. Instead of looking guilty, he got annoyed. "You went through my phone? That's financial abuse, actually," he said. "You're controlling. This is exactly why I was setting up something separate. You're too anxious about money." Then he did the biggest WTF move. He took out a folder from his bag and slid me a document. It was a power of attorney form giving him full financial control for my own well-being, and a prenup he'd downloaded from the internet. He said, "If you really trust me and want this marriage to work, sign these so you can stop obsessing over money." I just stared at him. No apology, no explanation, just sign over control or you're the problem. I didn't yell. I gathered the printed Instagram photo, the statements, and his little DIY legal packet, tucked them into my purse and said, "Cool, I'll let my lawyer look at it." He laughed, thought I was bluffing. I walked out that night with a backpack and my laptop. The next day, I moved in with a friend and canceled the venue. His last text to me was, "You're throwing away our future over a savings account?" Nah. I was throwing him away over the part where he tried to rob me blind to fund dates with his side chick and then demanded legal control over my life like I was a broken appliance. Story 2. I'm the ex in this one. I was the one who left. My ex-girlfriend, Lena, always needed drama. Fights with her mom, fights with her friends, constant vague posting on Instagram. I thought it was just, she's emotional. I was 25 and stupid. We'd been arguing for months about I told her I felt trapped, that the relationship was toxic. She'd respond with threats to hurt herself, or that I was abandoning her like everyone else. Every time I tried to leave, there'd be some crisis. Then she missed her period. Then she took a test. She sent me a photo of a positive stick. Girlfriend? The test in the photo looked weirdly familiar, like the first Google image result kind of familiar. When I mentioned us going to a clinic, she dodged it every time. Fast forward to the incident. I work in a small marketing agency. Open office, a lot of glass walls, very startup-y. I'm in a client meeting when the receptionist pings me on Slack. "Your wife? Girlfriend? Is here. Says it's an emergency." Before I can respond, I hear the commotion. She's walking straight into the open office with her phone held up, live streaming, to Instagram, crying. "Here he is, guys," she sobs to the camera, pointing it at me. "The father of my child who wants to abandon us." My boss is right behind her, horrified. My coworkers are frozen. She's shaking, clutching her bag, narrating to her followers about how I've been emotionally abusive and trying to force her to get rid of our baby. Then she does the WTF of all WTFs, pulls out a printed ultrasound and slaps it onto my keyboard like it's a subpoena. "There," she says, loud enough for the whole office. "Maybe now you'll take responsibility." The ultrasound has some random hospital watermark and the date is wrong. Like months off wrong. I recognize it instantly because I'd seen that exact image on Google when I'd searched ultrasound 8 weeks in a panic weeks earlier. She'd literally printed a stock photo and written her name on it in pen. My boss calmly asks her to leave. Security comes up. She keeps live streaming, calling everyone complicit, saying the company supports deadbeat dads. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I just looked at her and said very quietly, "Lena, we are done. For real." "You need help." She screamed that I was killing our child in front of my entire office. Then security escorted her out, still recording. Afterward, HR has me in a room asking if they need to involve police. My hands are shaking, but weirdly I feel relieved, like someone cut the last thread holding me there. That night she spammed me with texts about how I forced her to lie because I wouldn't commit. She admitted the test and ultrasound weren't real but said the emotions were real so it still counts. That was my line. I blocked her on everything, told my family what happened, and slept for 12 hours straight. The plot twist? Months later, a mutual friend told me Lena was online talking about how she'd survived a traumatic miscarriage after her abusive ex drove her to it. She was using the same ultrasound picture. For once, I didn't feel the urge to correct the narrative or defend myself. Everyone who mattered knew the truth. The biggest WTF wasn't the fake pregnancy. It was realizing she was willing to drag an imaginary child, my career, and her own reputation through the mud just to keep me from walking out the door. Story 3. I was 14 when my parents' custody battle finally hit the courtroom. Up until then, I'd been living primarily with my mom and seeing my dad every other weekend. It was messy but survivable. My dad wanted full custody because your mother is poisoning you against me. My mom wanted joint. I wanted nobody to ask me to pick. The day of the hearing, the judge said he wanted to talk to me privately and also have me briefly on the stand. I was nauseous but ready. I'd rehearsed my script. I love both my parents. I want to stay in my current school. I'm okay with the schedule we have. We're sitting outside the courtroom on a plastic bench. My dad leans over and slips something into my hoodie pocket. He winks and whispers, "Just read that if they ask which house you want. I know you get nervous." I took care of it. I figured it was a pep talk note or something. When I went to the bathroom, I checked. It was an envelope with cash in it. A lot. More money than I'd ever seen in one place. On top, a post-it in his handwriting. "Say you want to live with Dad full-time. I'll get you a car at 16. New iPhone now. We'll travel. Be smart." My stomach turned to ice. I shoved it back in my pocket because I literally didn't know what else to do. They call me in. I take the stand. My parents are on opposite sides, lawyers flanking them like vultures. The judge asks some basic questions, then, "Do you have a preference for which parent you live with primarily?" I see my dad's expectant face. He gives this tiny nod. My mom looks like she hasn't breathed in 10 minutes. I feel the envelope like it weighs 10 pounds. And then something in me just snaps into place. "Yes," I say into the mic. "I want to stay with my mom." My dad's face does this thing. Shock, then rage. The judge asks why. I'm shaking, but I force the words out, because she doesn't try to bribe me to choose her. There's this cold silence. The judge raises his eyebrows. My dad's lawyer starts to object, but the judge cuts him off and asks what I mean. My hands are trembling as I pull the envelope out of my hoodie and hand it to the bailiff. The judge opens it, sees the cash, the note. His whole face changes. My dad explodes. "She's lying. She planted that." Her mother? The judge bangs his gavel hard and warns him. If he speaks out of turn again, he'll be removed. After my part is done, they excuse me to the hallway, but the door is thin and I can hear things. My dad's lawyer is floundering. The judge is not impressed. In the end, the judge gives my mom primary custody, restricts my dad's visitation until he takes some parenting classes and therapy, and makes a pointed comment about attempted manipulation of a minor in a custody case. The WTF moment wasn't just the bribe. It was what happened after. On the way out, my dad corners me by the elevator and hisses, "Do you have any idea what you just cost me?" Not, "You hurt me." Not, "I'm disappointed." Not, "I love you anyway." Just what I'd cost him. I looked him in the eye and said, "You just answered that for me." I didn't go back to his house after that. When he finally got his visitation reapproved, I told the judge I didn't feel safe. They listened. We talk now maybe once a year, awkward texts on birthdays. But that day in court was when I emotionally left him for good. The biggest WTF wasn't the money. It was learning, at 14, that my dad saw me as an asset in a negotiation instead of his kid. Story 4. I work in tech, which means everything is a presentation. We have decks for literally everything. New features, office snacks, how to load the dishwasher the agile way. I did not, however, expect to see a cheating accusation presented in 16:9 with animations. Our team was having a Friday afternoon town hall plus early holiday party. Casual, half the team remote on Zoom, people already sipping beers. My manager, Dan, is married to a woman named Tessa. She's been at a few events, super nice, quiet, clearly anxious in crowds. We're midway through a boring quarterly review when the door opens and Tessa walks in. which is weird because spouses weren't invited to this one. She's dressed like she prepared for court. Blazer, folder, red lipstick that says, war. Dan looks surprised but goes to hug her. She dodges and heads straight for the front of the room where the projector laptop is. I have a presentation, she says, voice shaking but loud. Dan, sit. Everyone laughs awkwardly, thinking it's a joke. It's not. She plugs in a USB drive like she's been rehearsing the move. On Zoom, the remote people are all, what's happening, in the chat. Slide 1. Big title. The truth about Dan and coworker's name. And there's my colleague Jess's, full name in 72-point font. My heart stops. Jess goes sheet white. Dan stands up, furious, telling her to stop. She clicks to slide 2. Screenshots of texts between Dan and Jess. Filthy, explicit, talking about hotel rooms and lying to Tessa. Except, the font is off. The bubbles look weird. Jess leans over and whispers, those aren't real. I swear to God. I believe her immediately because I know how she texts. Too many emojis, no punctuation, and the screenshots are written like some bad soap opera. Plus, one of them has a timestamp for 3 a.m., on a night when we were all stuck in an airport together on a work trip. Dead phones and no Wi-Fi. Dan is swearing they're fake, trying to shut off the projector. Tessa shouts, stop gaslighting me, and keeps going. Slide 3. More proof, including a photo of Dan and Jess at a bar with the rest of our team conveniently cropped out. Slide 4. My demands, which includes Dan quitting, Jess being fired, and a public apology. It's a mess. Our director steps in, tells Tessa this is wildly inappropriate, and they need to handle this privately. Tessa starts live streaming on Facebook, narrating how the company is covering up sexual misconduct. HR is called in. People are staring, some recording on their phones like idiots. Zoom chat is blowing up. Here's the biggest WTF part. In the chaos, IT quietly disconnects the projector and pulls up the real logs. Turns out Tessa had installed spyware on Dan's phone months ago. She'd been intercepting his messages and editing them in a third-party app before saving screenshots. The original texts? Boring. Work stuff. A lot of lol, that meeting sucked, and memes. When confronted, right there in the conference room, Tessa says, well, if he didn't want to cheat, he shouldn't make me feel like he might. Absolute silence. Dan looks like something inside him broke. He takes off his wedding ring and sets it on the table in front of everyone. Voice flat. We're done, Tess. I'll have my lawyer contact you. You need help. She starts sobbing, saying he's proving her point, that she had to escalate because he wasn't giving her enough reassurance. Security ends up walking her out when she refuses to leave. Fallout. HR gives Jess a week off and a lawyer just in case. Dan takes extended leave. The story spreads, of course, but the receipts clear Jess completely. The emotional punch for me was what Dan said when he came back a month later. Thinner, quieter, wearing no ring. At the end of a meeting, he just said, if someone needs to destroy your life in front of your coworkers to feel secure, that's not love. That's a hostage situation. He wasn't talking just about Tessa. He was talking about how long he'd stayed because he thought he could fix her. The PowerPoint wasn't the beginning of the crazy. It was the finale. Story 5. I met Mark on a dating app. Divorced, 38, one kid who lived with her mom in another state. He was charming, emotionally literate, actually went to therapy. Compared to my exes, he was a golden retriever with health insurance. After a year together, he invited me to his Uncle Joe's funeral. Said his family was very formal, big Italian Catholic clan, and it would mean a lot if I came as support. We get there, and it's huge. Black suits, crying aunties, kids running around ignoring the solemnity. The program says, beloved husband, father, and grandfather. I'm holding Mark's hand, doing the supportive partner thing. During the eulogy, a woman gets up, elegant, mid-50s, clearly devastated. She thanks her husband of 30 years, Joseph, talks about their kids and grandkids. Mark squeezes my hand like he's in pain. After the service, we go to the reception in the church basement. I'm getting us coffee when the widow spots us. Her face does this weird flicker when she sees me. She walks straight up to Mark. So, she says, voice brittle, this must be your nurse. I laugh awkwardly, thinking she's joking. Oh no, she's your girlfriend. The widow cuts me off. I know. I saw the pictures. Mark goes pale. Mom, not here. And my brain short circuits. Mom? Turns out Uncle Joe was his dad. The divorce he told me about? Never happened. His parents had been separated for years but still legally married. And Mark had been keeping his relationship secret to avoid upsetting his extremely religious mother. Except it gets worse. The widow pulls up the obituary on her phone and shows me. I'm listed by name as his devoted caregiver and friend. Mark had written it. He'd literally rewritten my role in his life as nurse, so the extended family wouldn't know he was living with his girlfriend. We'd been splitting rent and planning trips, and on paper I was the help. I pull my hand away. What the hell, Mark? He hisses. We'll talk in the car. Please don't make a scene. His mom snorts. Of course he doesn't want a scene. It might affect the will accounts. Everyone within 10 feet goes quiet. She looks at me, eyes sharp. Did he tell you he moved back in with me last year on paper so he'd be listed as primary caregiver? He's been real concerned about doing right by Dad since he found out about the house. My stomach drops as all the little weirdnesses line up. The sudden push for me to pay more of our rent because his money was tied up helping family. The separate mailing address. The way he avoided posting us on social media. The biggest WTF comes next. We finally get to the car. I ask, "Are you still married?" He says, "No, I'm divorced. My dad wasn't. It's complicated. Look, my mom is dramatic. You know how she is. This isn't about us." I hold up the obituary on my phone. "This says I was your father's caregiver. That's a lie. That's legal fraud if it's connected to anything money-related." He sighs like I'm being unreasonable. "It's just optics. The lawyer said it might make it smoother for inheritance stuff if it looked like I had someone helping. You weren't supposed to see that. Can you just be cool about it? If this goes through right, we'll have a down payment for our house. Bought with money I was unwillingly used to help scam." I stared at him and realized I'd moved in with someone who'd not only lied about his family, but casually used my name in what sounded a lot like financial fraud and then asked me to be cool about it. At his dad's funeral, I excused myself, called a friend, and had her pick me up from the church parking lot. Later that night, Mark texted a wall of messages about how I'd abandoned him on the hardest day of his life, and how his dad's death was bigger than my ego. I sent back one message. "You listed me as your dad's caregiver without asking. You lied about who you are to everyone, including me. I'm not losing my integrity or my freedom so you can get a bigger slice of the will." Then I blocked him and emailed the funeral home asking them to remove my name from the online obituary. The emotional punch wasn't just discovering he was a liar. It was realizing how quickly he tried to turn me into an accessory, literally, right before I walked out of his life for good. Story 6. My ex Dylan used to joke that our dog Noodle was made of rubber and bad decisions. Every few weeks she'd come in with a new little injury. A limp, a bruise on her side, once a cracked nail. He always had a story. She slipped on the stairs. She ran into the coffee table. She tripped when he was walking her. He'd bring her home from the park and say, "She just yeeted herself into a bush, I swear." I worried, but the vet never found anything major. "Some dogs are just clumsy," the vet said. Dylan would give me that smile and call me paranoid. When I got a job offer abroad, Dylan's reaction was intense. We'd been together 4 years, talking vaguely about marriage, but when I said the job was in another country, he went cold. "You're really going to just drag Noodle across the world?" he said. "You're not thinking about what's best for her." We fought for weeks. He kept suggesting a break, saying long distance would ruin what we have. I offered to pay for his visa, even said we'd figure it out together. He refused everything that involved him making any real change. We finally broke up. It was ugly, but we agreed I'd keep Noodle since I'd adopted her before meeting him. He cried when we left, told her, "Daddy loves you," and made me promise to send photos. Fast forward 6 months. I'm in a new country, new apartment, Noodle snoring on my chest every night, and something weird happens. She stops getting hurt. No more limps. No random bruises. No fell down the stairs. She's still a goofball, still runs into door frames occasionally, but nothing like before. I realize one day that we haven't been to a vet in half a year except for vaccines. At first, I chalk it up to coincidence. Then my old neighbor, Maria, FaceTimes me. We're catching up and she mentions she saw Dylan walking a new dog. "Already?" I joke. "Yeah, poor thing," she says. "I've heard him yelling at it from my kitchen. And I swear I saw him yank it hard enough to lift it off the ground last week." My stomach twists. A couple weeks later, she messages me a pic from the neighborhood Facebook group. Someone posted a blurry photo of Dylan with the new dog and a caption. "Anyone know this guy? Please be careful. Saw him hit his dog at the park. Not okay. All the injuries. The way Noodle used to flinch when he reached for her too fast. How he always had a perfectly reasonable explanation that somehow made me feel crazy for questioning it." I sat there on my foreign couch, Noodle's head in my lap, and it washed over me in one sickening wave. She hadn't been clumsy. She'd been scared. I hugged her and ugly cried into her fur. apologizing to a dog who just wagged her tail and licked my face. That was my thank God we broke up moment. Not just for me, for her. I realized I hadn't just left a bad boyfriend. I'd accidentally rescued my dog from someone who hurt her and then convinced me she was just accident-prone. Story 7. This is actually about my brother's ex-wife, Kayla. For years, I thought she was just very devout. Now I look back and, yeah, they met at church. She was the worship leader. He played drums. She was all about biblical marriage and submission, which sounded like a red flag. But my brother said she was just old school. Within a year of marriage, he drifted away from everyone. Family dinners? Kayla's not comfortable with that crowd. Game nights with friends? Kayla thinks they're a bad influence. Every disagreement got framed as a spiritual attack. Anytime he vented to me about how she monitored his phone or got angry when he talked to female coworkers, he'd end it with, "But she just loves me so much. She's afraid of losing me." They finally divorced after she threw a mug at him during an argument and missed by inches. He packed a bag and came to crash on my couch. She told everyone at church he abandoned his family. The thank God moment came a year later. Our mom sent me a screenshot from the church ladies group chat. She'd been accidentally left in when they made a new one. It was a prayer request from Kayla. Only it wasn't about my brother anymore. It was about Jared, a new guy at the church who'd just gotten baptized. The message was long. At first glance, it sounded pious. "Please pray for Jared. The enemy is trying to remove him from godly covering. His parents are being used to pull him away from our community. I feel led to fast that the Lord would isolate him from any relationships that hinder his walk." My eyes snagged on the details. She mentioned how convicted she felt when he spoke to female coworkers. She complained about him wanting to visit his sister out of state. She said, "He has a history of running when God puts pressure on him through me." It was word for word the same phrasing she used about my brother, in texts I'd saved from years back. Almost copy-paste. Then one line punched me in the chest. "Pray he doesn't repeat X's name's rebellion." I was too lenient last time. I won't fail again. Too lenient. She'd thrown a mug at my brother's head and she thought the problem was that she hadn't gone far enough. Suddenly, every fight, every guilt trip, every spiritual concern snapped into focus. She wasn't trying to build a godly marriage. She was using religion as a script to isolate and control whoever she dated next. I showed the screenshot to my brother. He went quiet, then started laughing that brittle, disbelieving laugh you do when something is both hilarious and horrifying. "That could have been me again," he said. Or worse. "That could have been me in 10 years with kids who think that's what love looks like." We helped Jared quietly switch churches a few months later. He showed up at a barbecue at my place once, and my brother just clapped him on the shoulder and said, "You have no idea how lucky you are." I watched them talk and realized the worst part wasn't that she'd broken my brother. It was that she wasn't done. She was going to keep running the same playbook on new men until one of them didn't leave in time. Story 8. I dated M, a foreign student, for 2 years. From day one, he was open about his visa situation. "If I don't find a job after graduation, I have to leave," he'd say, half joking, half testing my reaction. When he proposed, he made a speech about love, but he also mentioned not wanting to lose everything we've built because of a piece of paper. I loved him. I said yes. Our plan was legit. We moved in together, combined finances in a pretty normal way, gathered evidence for the visa process. I didn't think of it as proof, just our life, photos, lease, joint Amazon account, the whole messy pile. Except the closer we got to the consulate interview, the more he shifted. Little digs about how, "If this doesn't go through, it's kind of on you." Pressure to answer questions in a very specific way. He'd correct how I remembered our first date, our timeline, what month we said, "I love you." "If our stories don't match, they'll think it's fake," he'd say. "You don't want to ruin my life by being sloppy, right?" The night before the interview, we had a huge fight. He found an old text from early in our relationship where I called us super casual to a friend. He spiraled, accused me of sabotaging the case if that ever came up. I slept on the couch. The next morning at the consulate, I was sick with nerves. He was icy. In the waiting room, he clutched a big manila folder like a life raft. When they called my name first, he pressed the folder into my hands. "Give them this if they need more evidence," he whispered. "Don't look inside. It'll just stress you out." That was the first time my brain went, huh. The officer asked me normal questions. How we met. Where we lived. What side of the bed he sleeps on. It was weirdly intimate but fine. At the end, she asked if we had any extra documentation. I handed over the folder. She opened it in front of me. Right on top was a stack of printed emails. Between him and someone named L. Emails about, "Once I get the green card, I can come back home for you." And, "She's on board with the plan now, don't worry." And it's just a few years and then I'll divorce, we'll be together legally. Under that, a drafted timeline of our relationship. Not in my handwriting. Whole chunks of our story rewritten to match what he thought sounded more convincing. Even a paragraph about how we tried for a baby but tragically miscarried, which never happened. The officer looked at me carefully. Did you know about this? I felt like the air left the room. No, I said. My voice sounded far away. They separated us after that. I don't know exactly what was said in his interview, but I heard raised voices through the thin door. We left the building in silence, him walking 10 steps ahead. At home, he finally turned on me. You ruined everything, he snapped. If you'd just gone along. With what? I said. With lying about a dead baby? With using me as a visa mule while you kept a girlfriend back home on email? He rolled his eyes. You're so dramatic. It's not like I don't care about you. This is just how it works. Everybody does it. That was my thank God moment. Not at the consulate, not when I saw the emails. It was that sentence. Everybody does it. Said like I was the crazy one for not wanting to be a side character in my own fake marriage. I called the officer the next day, withdrew my part of the application, and moved out within a week. Months later, a mutual friend sent me M's angry Facebook post about racist immigration systems and an ex who betrayed me. I just laughed. He thought the worst thing that happened was losing his shot at a green card. For me, the worst thing would have been getting it, and only realizing years later that the whole time, I'd been Plan B. Story 9. My ex Alex and I met in an MMO guild. Yeah, I know. We were both officers, stayed up late on Discord, fell in love over boss fights and loot drama. It was nerdy and kind of perfect. Our guild had this core trio, me, Alex, and his little sister, Rowan. She was shy on voice, typed a lot, supposedly anxious about how she sounded. She and I DM'd constantly. We trauma bonded over bad parents, mental health, everything. Rowan always took Alex's side. If we argued, she'd message me like, you know he doesn't mean it. He just gets overwhelmed. Or, he told me he's scared of losing you. She'd also tell me things about his past, awful exes, childhood abuse, that made me more protective of him. When Alex and I finally broke up, it was over something stupid on the surface. He'd kicked a guild member for disrespect, but I found out it was because the guy made a joke about Alex flirting in DMs with someone else. We fought. I said I needed a break, logged off. Rowan spammed me with messages. How I was abandoning him like everyone else. How he'd never recover if I left. It was intense. Too intense. I blocked them both and left the guild. 6 months later, my friends dragged me to a gaming convention. I knew Alex might be there with guild folks, but I figured I could avoid him in a building of 20,000 people. Of course, we ended up at the same after party. He looked the same. Hoodie, lanyard, smug little half smile. We did the awkward nod from across the room. No big drama. I was proud of myself for not spiraling. Then I heard someone behind me say, "Dude, that's the guy who got caught catfishing his own guild." My ears perked up. I casually drifted closer as they spilled the tea. Apparently, after I left, the guild slowly fell apart. One guy finally posted screenshots in the Discord, logs from a private server where Alex had been practicing switching between accounts. Same typos, same speech patterns, same stupid inside jokes. Only Alex and Rowan were supposed to know. They eventually realized Rowan's account logged in and out within seconds of Alex's, always from the same IP. When confronted, he admitted it. Rowan never existed. All those late-night DMs where she comforted me, it was Alex, talking to me about himself, getting me to feel sorry for him through a fake third party. The little sister who always vouched for his version of events, who handed me curated stories about his tragic past, who told me I was overreacting whenever I got upset. That was just another mask. At the con, someone actually pointed him out as that catfish guy, and he laughed like it was a dumb rumor. I looked at his face and suddenly all these moments rewrote themselves. The way he'd sometimes slip and say I instead of she when relaying something Rowan said. The weird times when both of them were asleep, but typing in the same rhythm. My thank God we broke up moment hit me right there next to a guy in a full Pikachu onesie. I'd thought I left because of some petty guild drama. In reality, I'd escaped someone willing to invent an entire person just to control the narrative in our relationship. I didn't confront him. I didn't need closure. Watching him stand alone in a crowd of people who knew what he'd done was enough. I went back to my friends, queued up for a game demo, and for the first time in years, logged into a new MMO that night without checking if he was online. Story 10. My mom married Tom when I was 9. He was the fun stepdad at first. Disney trips, spontaneous ice cream, loud and charismatic. Everyone loved him. Living with him was a different story. He'd pick fights right before big events. My birthday party? You're ungrateful, maybe we should cancel. School dance? You don't deserve a ride if you talk to your mother like that. The fights always ended the same way. Me sobbing, apologizing, promising to be better, and him sweeping in as the hero who forgave me so I could still go. By the time I was 16, I genuinely believed I caused every conflict. When Mom finally divorced him after catching him sexting someone from work, I was weirdly more upset than she was. I felt like I'd failed him somehow. We went low contact. I moved out for college, went to therapy, slowly realized that conflict then rescuing is a classic control cycle. My therapist actually used the phrase emotional abuse, and I cried for a week. Fast forward to my wedding last year. I debated inviting him and decided no. My therapist asked, "Do you want him there in your wedding photos forever?" That settled it. Mom, however, was still in touch occasionally. She'd send me screenshots of him texting about how he'd always think of me as his daughter. I told her I didn't want to hear it. Day of the wedding, everything's going smoothly. Small venue, outdoor ceremony, my soon-to-be wife gorgeous in her suit. I'm nervous but happy. We're at the reception when I see him. Tom, standing near the bar in a too-tight blazer, holding a drink like he owns the place. My stomach drops so hard I swear I hear it. Mom looks guilty. He just wanted to watch from the back, she whispers. He said he wouldn't bother you. Before I can decide whether to kick him out, the DJ announces it's time for speeches. Best friend goes, my wife's brother goes, my mom goes. Then Tom just walks up and takes the mic. I know I'm not on the list, he booms, but I raise this girl like my own. Half the room shifts uncomfortably. My wife gives me a, "Do you want me to tackle him?" Look, I shake my head. I weirdly want to hear what he'll say. He launches into this monologue about how I was a difficult child, how he pushed me because he saw my potential, how all our fights were actually love in disguise. People chuckle politely at his bad jokes. Then he says, "If I hadn't been so hard on you, you wouldn't be the strong woman you are today. You can thank me for that later." There it is. My whole childhood rewritten as a favor he did me. I stand up, heart pounding. I can feel teenage me shaking inside my skin. But I'm 28 now, in a white jumpsuit and combat boots, with a wife who loves me and a therapist-approved voice. Actually, I say, loud enough to cut through the murmurs. I can thank my therapist for that. The room goes quiet. Tom laughs like I'm joking. See? That sense of humor. I keep going. And while we're all here, let me clear something up. You didn't push me. You screamed at me before every birthday. You made me beg for parties you'd already paid for just so you could feel powerful canceling them. That's not love. That's control. You could hear forks hitting plates. Tom's smile drops. I'm grateful today, I say, voice shaking but steady. Grateful that my mom left you. Grateful I went to therapy. Grateful I learned that love doesn't feel like constantly trying not to make someone mad. I turn to the DJ. Please take the mic back from this uninvited guest. The DJ, bless him, practically sprints over. Someone starts clapping. Then more people. My wife is crying. My mom's got her hand over her mouth, tears running down her face. Tom tries to say something, but the moment's gone. A couple of my cousins quietly escort him out. That was my thank God we broke up moment, even though we weren't dating. Standing there in front of everyone, I realized he didn't show up to support me. He showed up to reclaim the narrative, to remind everyone he made me. Instead, he accidentally gave me the perfect stage to say out loud for the first time that he didn't make me strong. I got strong to survive him, and then I chose a life where nobody gets to call abuse a gift. Story 11. My ex, Nate, always said he was my biggest fan. He'd come to my presentations, give notes on my resume, tell everyone how brilliant I was, and somehow, I never actually got anywhere. Every time I applied for a promotion or a new job, something happened. I'd get ghosted after a great interview, or the company would suddenly freeze hiring. Nate's reaction was always a sad headshake and, "See? The market's brutal. You're not ready to leave yet. It's safer if you stay where you are." He made more money than me, so over time I started relying on him. He paid more rent until you get that promotion. He handled most of the bills. He gently questioned my choices. "Are you sure that job isn't too intense for you? Remote work sounds isolating. You're so sensitive. You always get stressed in new environments. It's okay that you're not built for that." We broke up because he cheated, not because of any of this. I left in a blur of tears and cardboard boxes, just wanting out. A few months later, I land an interview at a company I really, really want. It goes well, then they invite me back for a final round. I'm filling out onboarding paperwork with HR when the HR lady frowns at her screen. "Huh," she says. "We actually have you in our system already." I laugh. Maybe I applied before and forgot? She tilts the monitor so I can see. There's my name, my old email, an application from 2 years ago, and an email from me sent a week after the final interview. Hi, I wanted to thank you again for the opportunity, but after talking it through with my partner, I don't think I'm emotionally ready for a role this demanding. I'll be withdrawing my application. I struggle with anxiety and change, and it wouldn't be fair to the team. I never wrote that email. The HR lady gives me a careful look. You didn't send this? My hands are shaking. The wording is exactly how Nate talks about me. Emotionally ready. Struggle with change. He'd had my email password. He'd helped me prep for that interview. I sit there in that bland little office and realize I had a job offer once. I'd been chosen, and he'd gone into my email and turned it down for me, then spent 2 years telling me the market was too competitive and I wasn't ready. He'd kept me dependent on him on purpose. I look up at the HR lady and say very clearly, no, I didn't send that, and I am absolutely ready for this job. She deletes the old note, smiles, and says, good, because we'd like to officially offer it to you. My thank God we broke up moment wasn't just getting the job. It was understanding that the person who claimed to believe in me had quietly been the reason I never left. Story 12. My ex, Kara, loved telling people she saved my life. To be fair, when we met, I was struggling. Panic attacks, insomnia, the works. She was organized and nurturing and knew everything about mental health. She made me doctor's appointments, sat with me in waiting rooms, picked up my prescriptions. When my meds made me foggy, she'd tisk and say, you need them, but clearly the dosage isn't right. I'll help you manage it. She bought one of those giant pill organizers and filled it for me every Sunday night while we watched TV. For a while, I felt, okay, not great, but functional. Whenever I got worse, Kara would say it was because I didn't appreciate her enough, or let stress ruin everything. I believed her. Over time, my whole life shrank. I stopped driving because she said I shouldn't risk it on these meds. I stopped seeing friends because social stuff always triggers you. I worked from home. She was my main link to the outside world. We broke up after she slapped me during an argument and then blamed my out-of-control emotions. I moved in with a friend and switched doctors. At my first appointment with the new psychiatrist, I brought my entire medical history and the beloved pill organizer, feeling like a responsible adult. She opened it, frowned, and then asked very gently, how often do you take your meds? Every day, I said. My ex set this up. She was really on top of it. The doctor pointed. 2 of the compartments were empty. 2 had double the dose. A couple days had a completely different pill I didn't recognize. That's not what I prescribed you, she said. We went through it day by day. Dosages all over the place. Days with none of my anti-anxiety meds at all. Other days with a cocktail that would knock out a horse. My brain tried to defend Kara. Maybe she got confused? She was busy. She was helping. Then the doctor pulled up my old chart. Notes from my previous psychiatrist. Partner frequently calls between appointments insisting patient is unstable and needs stronger medication. Reports of episodes that do not match patient's own descriptions. Kara had called my doctor behind my back multiple times, describing me as much worse than I actually was, pushing for higher dosages. And then she'd been the one doling them out. It hit me like a physical blow. She needed me sick. Sick meant I didn't drive, didn't go out, didn't trust my own memory when she contradicted it. Sick meant she got to be the hero, the caretaker, the saint who saved her unstable girlfriend. I left that appointment with a new prescription and a direct line to the pharmacy. I bought my own cheap little pill box from the dollar store and filled it myself, hands shaking but steady. A few months later, clear-headed for the first time in years, I realized something else. The scariest part of our relationship wasn't my illness. It was the way she manipulated it until I couldn't tell where my symptoms ended and her control began. Thank God I walked away before I forgot there was a difference. Story 13. My ex, Sean, was the unluckiest guy I knew. That's how he framed it anyway. When we started dating, he had this whole tragic backstory. His car had mysteriously caught fire. His previous apartment building had randomly flooded. One of his business ventures had burned down from an electrical fault. Insurance, he always said, had screwed him. He'd tell the stories like the universe had it out for him. I felt bad, impressed by his resilience. He hated candles. He unplugged everything at night. He double-checked stoves obsessively. If I forgot and left my straightener plugged in once, it became a 30-minute lecture about how, you know what I've been through with fires. Dating him was like living with a permanently stressed-out building inspector. But we were in love, so I called it quirky trauma and moved on. We broke up because he was controlling and jealous, not because of the fire stuff. When I moved out, He cried and said, I just hope nothing bad happens to you without me there to keep you safe. A year later, I'm on my couch, half watching TV, half scrolling my phone. A news alert pops up from the local station. Man arrested in string of arsons tied to insurance fraud scheme. I almost swipe it away, but the mugshot loads. It's Sean. I sit up so fast I spill my coffee. The article details a pattern of suspicious fires over several years. Properties he owned, cars, storage units. The fire at his old business? Not faulty wiring. The flooded apartment building? Sprinkler system accidentally triggered during a small, deliberately set blaze. They'd connected the dots after his current house went up in flames while he was out for a walk. But his phone data put him right next door at the time the fire started. Investigators found accelerant in his garage. Suddenly, I'm replaying every bad luck story he ever told me. The way he always made sure I triple-checked things. How he'd mock people who didn't have renter's insurance. How he once casually asked if my work laptop was insured and where I kept it. I remember how strangely intense he got when I joked about getting a candle warmer. You and your stuff are the only valuable things I've got left, he said. Imagine if something happened. I used to feel flattered by that. Now my skin crawls. I picture myself in that house we almost signed a lease on together, waking up to smoke, him saying, Don't worry, I've got us covered, already rehearsing his victim speech for the insurance adjuster. My thank God we broke up moment was realizing that if we'd stayed together, I would have been one more tragic detail in his unlucky life story. Maybe the girlfriend who left the stove on. Maybe the ex who people whispered about when they saw my name in the same file as his. Instead, I was just a woman on a couch, safe, watching his mugshot appear on my phone like a warning I'd finally learned how to read. Story 14. My ex, Jules, was a photographer. In practice, that meant she did a couple weddings a year and took a lot of photos of me. At first, it was sweet. She'd send me edited candids with captions like, My muse, and look how beautiful you are when you're not posing. Over time, the photos got more intimate. She'd always ask, You're okay with this, right? You know I'd never show anyone. I believed her. She'd had a nightmare ex who leaked her nudes. She cried telling me about it. I'd never do that to someone, she said. When we broke up, it was mutually awful. Too many fights, too much codependency. We cried, we hugged, we promised to stay friends someday, and then blocked each other for our own sanity. About 6 months later, I joined a queer co-working space. I'm making small talk with a woman I've just met when she squints at me. Sorry, this is weird, she says. But have we met? You look familiar. I'm pretty sure we haven't. Different circles. Then she snaps her fingers. Wait, are you in that photographer's work? The one who did the Bodies and Honesty series? My blood runs cold. Jules had talked about doing an anonymous art series once, using silhouettes and shadows. I'd said no, clearly. The woman pulls up Instagram. My heart is pounding so hard I feel nauseous, but I look. There I am. Full face in some, partially obscured in others, but unmistakable. In underwear. In bed. Laughing, crying, sleeping. The captions are all faux deep about capturing vulnerability and owning our rawness. Some of the photos are from nights I'd specifically asked her not to shoot because I felt gross. One is from the morning after my panic attack. The one where I sobbed that I felt ugly and broken and she said, Let me show you how I see you instead. It has 10,000 likes. Comments like, wow, the trust here, and I wish someone saw me like this. I feel like I'm going to pass out. My new acquaintance says carefully, if you didn't consent to this, that's not okay. I emailed Jules from a burner account demanding she take them down. She replies instantly like she's been waiting. I did ask. You said you trusted my eye. And besides, nobody knows it's you unless you tell them. These photos are helping people. You should be proud. I stare at the line. Nobody knows it's you unless you tell them. Then, at the tag, my hometown geotagged. A few photos where my tattoos are clearly visible. My hands are shaking when I write back. Take them down. Or I start naming myself very loudly as the unconsenting subject of your art in every comment section and every community you work in. I CC a lawyer friend for good measure. She removes them within an hour. But not before sending one last message. You're destroying something beautiful because you're ashamed of your own body. That's sad. That's when the thank God hits. Not just gratitude that we're not together. Gratitude that I'm no longer living inside her narrative, where my boundaries were ashamed and her violations were beauty. I close my laptop in that co-working space, heart still racing, and realize that if we'd stayed together, I probably would have spent years letting her turn my privacy into content and my consent into a blurry memory. Instead, I got to draw a hard line, publicly, loudly, and under my own name. Story 15. I dated Maya for 3 years in a mountain town that has wildfire season the way other places have autumn. Every summer we made go bags. She was super into disaster prep, laminated checklists, fireproof box, the works. I joked she missed her calling as a survivalist influencer. Our relationship, though, was off. She was affectionate when things were calm, but every time I had a crisis, lost my job, my dad got sick, she went cold. I can't handle your drama, she'd say, even as I was crying in the next room. We broke up in the spring, mostly because I got tired of feeling like a burden for having normal human emotions. I moved across town into a tiny apartment and kept my own little go bag out of habit. That summer, the big one hit. A wildfire started miles away and moved faster than anyone expected. Sirens, smoke, that weird orange sky like the end of the world. My neighborhood got an evacuation order at 3 a.m. I grabbed my bag, my cat, my laptop, and left. The roads were chaos. Horns, ash falling like snow, people driving with their hazards on. I ended up in a high school gym converted into an evacuation center. Cots everywhere, tired volunteers, people clutching pets and pillowcases of stuff. Around 9 a.m., I see Maya. She's in full logistics mode, of course. Bright vest, walkie-talkie, barking instructions, checking names off clipboards. She volunteers with the local emergency response team. I knew that. I also knew she was probably thriving on the adrenaline. We make eye contact. It's awkward but civil. She walks over, gives my cat a quick scratch like he's an old coworker. "Hey," she says. "You got out okay?" "Yeah," I say. "You?" She shrugs. "I evacuated my place, then came straight here. Busy night." She looks at my little pile of belongings. Backpack, cat carrier, laptop bag. "That's all you brought?" I figured that was enough. She nods. Then, almost casually, pulls out a folded, laminated sheet from her pocket. "Remember our priority list?" she says, a little laugh. I still use it. It helped me not panic packing. She hands it to me without thinking. It's the list we made together years ago of what to grab in an emergency. We'd argued over it at the time. I thought it was dorky. She insisted it was essential. The list is numbered. 1. Important documents. 2. Mitztray. Laptop, backup, drives. 4. Sentimental items. Photos, heirlooms. 5. Pets. 6. Clothes. 7. Other. I stare at it for a second. Then notice the handwriting. Some items have been scribbled out, rewritten. Next to 5. Pets, she's added, if time. Between 3 and 4 in different ink, she's wedged in 3A. Camera equipment plus hard drives, 3B. Grandma's jewelry. And then, at the bottom, another line, 8. People who can take care of themselves. I point at it, heart doing something weird. "What's that?" She laughs like it's an inside joke. "Oh, that's my reminder. Don't waste time waking up roommates or partners who can walk themselves to the car. Sounds harsh, but you can't save everyone in a crisis. Gotta prioritize." She says it so breezily. I think about all the times I'd cried in our bedroom and she'd said, "I can't carry you through this." All the times she'd vanished when I needed her most, then come back when things were stable, wanting credit for being low drama. And suddenly it hits me. If we'd still been living together when the evacuation order came at 3 a.m., I might have been item 8. The one she didn't waste time on. I look up from the list. "So if I was still at your place," I start. She waves a hand. "You're resourceful. You'd have figured it out." I grabbed my stuff and left at 2:45. Had to beat the traffic. She walks off to check someone in, completely oblivious to the little earthquake she's just triggered in my chest. I sit there in that noisy gym, smoke in my throat, cat asleep on my lap, and realize something crystal clear. She never saw me as someone to protect. I was just another capable adult in the way of her perfectly optimized life. Thank God the fire hit when we were already living separate lives. Because the worst part wouldn't have been losing my things. It would have been waking up alone in a burning neighborhood and finally understanding exactly where I ranked on her laminated list.